What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brooklyn Boxing Podcast. We have a special guest today, Robert Patton, the CEO of Sheath Underwear. Appreciate you coming on today.
It's my pleasure. I love doing podcasts and having good conversations, meeting new people, and having a good time. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, the other day when I was on your IG Live, I brought up kind of the reason why I even found Sheath Underwear at first on IG was I saw Jeremy Stevens, doing an ad for you guys, rocking the underwear. He fought last night. Unfortunately, he didn't get the win. But Jeremy Stevens, a guy who's been in the UFC forever. He's a savage. And I was like, what is this company Sheath? Let me look into this. And then I started checking out your IG Live, and it kind of all stemmed from there.
Wow. Yeah. We do sponsor a lot of fighters. Jeremy Stevens being one of them. He is a badass. Last night, that was such a weird move, submission to get caught in. I mean, I was like, a Kimura? Really? You get caught with a Kimura? But the way the guy was squatting over his head, and he had a really dominant position. And I think probably Jeremy's never been in that and probably didn't even expect a Kimura from that position, and then just got kind of caught off guard.
Yeah, it was a nasty submission. You could tell, like, if he didn't tap right, I mean, his shoulder would have been completely gone.
Because that dude he was in just his body was over Jeremy's head, and that just angle could have torqued that arm right off, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. The whole card last night, I don't know if people listening watched it, but I watched most of the card, and it was good to see Miesha Tate also came back and got a win after a couple years off. And then the main event, Islam Makhachev, Khabib's protege, looking very dangerous, and I'm sure he wants a top 5 guy, or Rafael Dos Anjos next. But before I even
he looks way bigger than his opponent.
Yeah.
So that was he must be able to cut a lot of weight, I imagine.
Yeah. I saw in the pre-fight that he was going through a crazy weight cut, and a lot of time in the sauna. But before we even talk too much about the UFC and just sort of the fight game in general, like, are you a fan of fight sports, boxing, UFC? Obviously,
I'm mostly mixed martial arts and UFC particularly. Yeah, I do. I watch, Tyson Fury and Whitaker. Is that his name?
Yep.
Okay, so those are fun. And of course, like Tyson, and I watched some Jake Paul shit recently. And I know that's not, well, he's pretty good. Like, as far as he seems like he's pretty good, way better than me, or, as far, and like his brother, Jake Paul and
Logan Paul. Logan fought Floyd.
Yeah. And he went 10 rounds or 8 rounds against Floyd, which seemed like Floyd waited till, closer to the end, or like 4 or 5 rounds in to start laying on him, but he was able to survive, which is something. I know. I heard him say
a lot of noise.
Yeah, it's funny, but like, I don't know if you heard this though, that Floyd released some audio footage of Logan telling him, like, take it easy.
I saw that as well. I don't know if Logan was just kind of playing around, and it's hard to say, right? The whole thing is kind of a show, and of course Floyd is older now, but hey, credit to both guys. They made a bunch of money. They got people to tune in, and they're the winners at the end of the day. They got that cash. But to move away from sort of the fighting stuff a little bit for now, I wanted to get back to your story and kind of your journey on how you founded Sheath. But at the beginning, like, growing up as a kid, were you involved in athletics? Did you think that you were going to end up in the Army? Like, as a kid, like, how did you envision yourself when you were older?
When I was in 5th grade, we have like the career day, and I wore a suit and a tie, and I thought I would be the president of a company, for one. As time went on, I wanted to be in the NBA. So I really, I practiced every day for like 4 hours a day, by myself sometimes or whatever. I was really bad at basketball, which made me try that much harder. All my friends would beat me with, easy, like very easily. And so I'm not naturally gifted athletically. I'm 5'8", 150, very average size, height, weight, speed, agility, all these things. But because I was so weak in sport, it made me like put forth that much effort to try to keep up and compete. And ultimately I ended up making the high school basketball team, which is amazing. Um, I made the freshman team and the sophomore team. I didn't make JV or varsity. Unfortunately, in life, I made some bad decisions and I didn't make it. And I got a lot of injuries, from I would not quit. I was practicing a lot every day. And if I got injured, I wouldn't give myself time to heal. And we'll just say I got injured myself out of that potential, which there was no real chance of me making it to the NBA. I don't think. My mom told me anyways.
But you were obviously showed that like never quit attitude, right? Even at a young age in high school. And so like at what point did you start to look towards like the military? Was that at all on your radar at that point in high school?
No, I never. I always respected the military. My dad was in the Air Force, and he did 4 years, and he didn't really glamorize it, but I didn't expect to go in myself. I just figured I would go to college, like my parents would tell me, I'd go to college and then get a job, and that's kind of what I did. Short story: went to college, got a job. I mean, I failed out of college miserably, trying to become the Scarface of Statesboro. I was like a little wannabe gangster, I think. And that luckily didn't last very long. I got arrested and put in my place and taught a valuable lesson early, because I was kind of going down the right path. I had a lot of ambition, and I got a hustler spirit, as Jay-Z would say. But luckily I didn't get too far in that game of, like, I was dealing things, like an idiot. I was dumb. I was so dumb. But again, it showed, like, there was always these characteristics of success, or at least striving for more than what I had.
Was
That's
that
what.
was that addicting for you? Like when you were in that kind of lifestyle, like feeling that sort of danger or that element of like like the risk
It
factor?
was exciting, definitely exciting. And I remember like walking into the club, and everyone knew who I was, and they're high-fiving me, and they're like, spreading, parting like the sea so I could get to my VIP section. It was very brief though. The whole uh rise and fall happened within like 6 months, thankfully, again, because it was all dumb. And my parents were not absent, but they definitely didn't give me the values that you would hope parents might provide. I've got those from movies like Goodfellas and Scarface, and like just gangster. I wanted to be a gangster or something. I don't, a
Yeah.
rapper and whatever.
No, it's interesting. Like you talk about your liking towards risk or that kind of that edginess, and then how that applies to obviously your story. Like I don't think it's an accident that you ended up in the military, right? I mean, it's like having yourself in those kind of situations, like it relates, I'm sure, to a lot of fighters, like their backgrounds they come from. There's so many different stories in the fight game about where guys come from, but it all kind of, they all have some parts that relate to each other of that edge, right? They like that little bit of danger, whether it's in the ring, out of the ring. It's something that sets them off and drives them.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we I'm not a fighter, but I'm very competitive, and that's what I love about the fighter's heart and spirit, is that they are putting everything towards one goal, and trying to be the best in the world. And I was telling myself this morning, I'm the best in the world. I was thinking of fuck, what is her name? uh Fuck. She's a champion at 125, 115, 115. She just beat the Asian lady. Fuck.
Rose Namajunas.
Rose Namajunas. She's like, I'm the best in the world. I'm the best in the world. And, you know, like, that's something, if you tell yourself I don't know. That puts a lot of pressure on you. But she lived up to it. That was really something else. A lot of my thinking pertains, like my life revolves around a certain way of thinking, like where I'm constantly trying to do affirmations, where I'm telling myself certain things so that I'll believe them ultimately. And a lot of it's like gratitude though. I just try to stay grateful, but every day in every way I'm getting better and better. Just like these weird affirmations to keep myself moving in the right direction and keep a good mind state, because it's easy to get
Yeah.
sidetracked in life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think too, like in the fight game right now, like there's a few guys that really stand out for me in terms of their mindset. And when you look at boxing, you have a guy like Tyson Fury, everything that he went through, this massive weight gain, drug abuse, alcoholism, then he comes back, loses all the weight, totally changes his mindset around, and now he's just like all positive all the time. Obviously, he talks about like how he has his days where he's down or whatever, but he totally switched his mindset around about how to just have those positive affirmations every day and try to like manifest success. In the UFC, we saw it with McGregor. Um, Recently, you could say at times he's like been a little bit more darker in terms of like his energy. He used to be exactly that like positive manifest energy. Now it's like a little bit, ever since like Khabib, it's a little darker. But even like on Instagram, like he posted a video the other day of him like wheeling around with his leg up like after surgery, and he like turned it into a positive. And people say, you can say whatever you want, like, oh, he's making excuses or whatever. But at the end of the day, like he's doing what he has to do for his own mental, for him to come back. And
Mm-hmm.
like he's wheeling around, like telling himself, like, oh, I got a metal rod in my leg. It's unbreakable now. Like this is exactly, he literally says, this is exactly what I needed. Like I had this ankle was giving me problems for a long time. And it sounds silly, but at the same time, it's incredible to have genuinely think like that. So it's always fascinating to see people who are able to have such a positive outlook all the time.
Yeah, the psychology of success and just staying, like getting to the top and then staying on top. That's where he has fallen short. Like he was able to get to the top, but then how do you stay on top and keep that hunger when you're sleeping in silk sheets and arriving in yachts to your fights? But I think he does it for the thrill of it. And what I'm just trying, like we're still growing as a company,
Mm-hmm.
but we're in the top 10 underwear companies according to some article that is for like pouch underwear. So we're in like a niche of the market, but it seems to be a growing one. But like I never would want to, we could never walk around and I was telling myself I'm the best. I don't even know why I was doing that. I was doing it because Rose Namajunas was doing it. I was kind of meditating and just kind of playing around with different affirmations, but that kind of started making me feel weird. It's like, you're the
I
best
have
at
the
what?
best pouch. I have the
Yeah.
best pouch.
Yeah. It didn't really fit for what I'm trying to do. I'm always trying to better myself. I mean, I'm learning right now. I'm taking a ceramics class, and that's really trippy because you're doing like the mind body connection of making these pots and stuff. I have something here, but anyways, learning the piano, I'm learning the Spanish, a little bit of sign language, and I'm trying to always, just do things that like
Well,
I'm reading, so self-help. So I never think that I'm the best in the world or whatever. I'm not at the top of my game. There's always room for improvement. And I box. I do box at my bag. I have a bag out in the front yard, and it's just real cathartic. It's great exercise.
yeah, yeah.
People don't People think it's for like savages and brutes, but there's a lot of cerebral, there
Oh,
is a cerebral aspect to boxing that people don't get.
oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's you just like Floyd is like the easiest example in like recent history, and like he's the most cerebral of them all, and that's why he was able to have such success. And like Roger Mayweather, when he was alive, he used to tell Floyd, it's all about the mind. There's always guys who are going to be faster than you, stronger than you, quicker, whatever. But if you can outthink them in there, then you can win. And that's definitely, the common misconception. As you said, a lot of people think it's just guys in there brawling. It is certainly not that. It's definitely a thinking man's game. Although there are brawls at times, the fans love those, but a lot of times it's highly calculated in there. But to get back to Sheath, I want to hear more about kind of how it all started. I guess when you were overseas, right? The level of heat over there, the training. Talk to me about, like, at what point you said, I got to figure something out here. I got to get some new underwear, or I got to, this is uncomfortable. How did that, tell me about how it all started.
I was on my second tour in Iraq, 2008, and I had taken a team. I was like the NCOIC, so I was in charge. It was really cool because I was doing well in the Army as it was. So I just like to point that out. I was kind of excelling in that area, which it's really, if you just follow orders, just do what they tell you to do, that you're not going to get to do what you want to do. When you go to the Army, you do what they tell you to do. And I did that to the best of my ability. And I rose to the ranks rather quickly. And I was also 26 when I joined, but at this time, this is like 2-3 years later. So I'm 28, 29 on my second tour. And I was very active. So every day we would go work out. I was running like more than that. Yeah. Well, no, 7 miles a day.
Wow.
Around this track. My job on the second tour, thankfully, was much more like relaxed when it came to our actual job. We were more like waiting around for the majority of this particular tour, whereas the first tour, it was body bags after body bags, like all day, every day, like literally. And so thankfully this tour was much more relaxed. And I was going to college, even like I was doing like online classes, and I would go, and we had our own compound. I was in a special unit. There was just 5 of us, and we had our own little compound, and nobody fucked with us. And we only had to work when we had to work. Like we were like firemen, so to speak, in this particular job. And so unless we were called, we could do what we wanted to do. And that's why I was just like, we're working out, we're taking care of our compound, and we were out there, and the generators were down. We were kind of taken care of. We had, if anything happened, somebody would come fix it. We had people cleaning up for us and everything. So we could do it. And what I'm getting at is a long way of saying it was really hot one day. The generators were down, the showers were off, and I was really hot, and I was outside kind of like tooling around. Beautification is what we would call it when we were cleaning up stuff. And it was just like super hot. And I have super sensitive skin also, like eczema. And so when something is irritating to you, it would be like way more irritating to me. So what was already irritating was extra irritating. And like, I was actually also wearing some old Army underwear that somehow I ended up with someone else's, because like in the Army you do laundry together. And I was wearing like some XL underwear, so they were like sagging, but they were the whitey tighties, and they were like cutting into my thighs. Perfect storm of discomfort. And I was just like, really, I had all my gear on, so we call it full battle rattle or whatever, which is your helmet, your fucking bulletproof vest. It's like this really heavy vest, and all your ammo and your weapon and whatnot. So if you had to readjust downstairs, it's like more difficult. And so I'm constantly having to readjust, and I'm just like, fuck, if everything was separated, I wouldn't be having to do this right now. So it was a very simple thought. If everything was separated down there, I wouldn't have to do this. And so I run back inside, and I got a hand towel and put it down my pants, and it just separated everything, and it provided a moment of relief where I was like, aha, if I so a pouch, like something separating down there. And I was running through a bunch of different like kind of images in my mind of what that would look like. And what ultimately came to like an inverted kangaroo pouch but I just had a picture in my mind. So that's like the lesson. A lot of people have an idea, but then it stops there.
Yeah.
Well, so I was like, I'm gonna go do this. And so I went to the local. They had like a PX. It's called a PX, but it's like a little Walmart, a general store. You go and buy stuff. So I went and bought some underwear, some scissors, and I started like kind of playing around with what I would want it to look like. I drew it out, and then I went to our local tailor there and had them sew in the pouch on the inside of the underwear. A couple is different. Actually, I had two different designs, so I had them do both. And one was like a V, and one was it was like a vagina. It was weird. It was like a vagina. One was like a vagina, and I was like, okay, you put everything through, and that'll keep everything separate. But then that was like too much because like how you're gonna squeeze everything through. So then I did the kangaroo pouch, made more. It was more simple, simplicity, and so simplicity is key. And now I'm gonna backtrack to I'm 20. This is after had gotten arrested, and I'm done with like cocaine and whatnot. I had moved to California to start over because I was in Georgia when this was all happening, and I had gotten a temporary job, and I was doing accounts payable for the Wet Seal Inc. But I was still like, I'm doing accounts payable. Like I want more than this, and I always had this ambition, right? So, but anyways, I had an idea when I was 20, and it was for keys, crazy keys, and these keys would have an imprint of Mickey Mouse on them, for instance, but not like painted on. It was going to be imprinted like a quarter. It had to be like stamped so you could feel the texture of it. And keys were going to be cool, not so mundane, not just like some little copper key. It would be like jewelry. You might want to even show your friends, look at this cool key I have. And I was like convinced that this was genius. And I'm telling everyone, and I got some decent feedback. I remember I looked into patents. Turns out I wasn't the first person to have ever thought of this. Like back when it was like skeleton keys with the two little prongs and the thing, like old timey keys, they had like they might have a letter like H, so or for your name, your
Yeah.
last name. Point is, okay, so not all new ideas are original anyways, but that doesn't matter. But what happened was I was trying to make the key like exactly the way I wanted it, and I was not willing to really compromise like with paint. Or the paint that's not going to be good enough. And in trying to get it print like exactly how I wanted it, I ran up against obstacles and walls, and ultimately gave up. I tried for like 6 months, half-heartedly, probably even because I had a real job that job, and I ended up giving up. Okay, is the lesson. So back to like, I'm in Iraq, and I made these underwear, and I had the idea. Like once I got home, and I started sewing them, and I bought a sewing machine, and I'm making them, and I'm handing them out to my friends. But when it came to like making it a business, or so like a idea to sell to the public, you can overcomplicate things like I was doing with the keys. My point, I guess, is that I kept it simple. It's a simple pouch. I didn't like there's other pouch companies, and they're very complicated. Like some have strings and straps and just weird kind of funky designs with little slits, like Saks underwear has these weird anyways. It's very simple. So, and I learned that from that previous endeavor where I was trying to overcomplicate it. Because okay, so it was like 6 months before I had the idea that I was at a Walmart, right, about to deploy, and I saw those same keys that I had the idea for, but they were painted on, and it was like a kick to the gut. I was like, I had that idea, and I would have been like, I feel like I would have been a billionaire or something, if I had followed through and just simplified it, just painted on. And to cure everyone's curiosity or whatever, I did try the paint, but like I remember sticking it in our keyhole at our house door, and the paint like chipped off.
Yeah.
I was like, well, of course that won't work. Well, they've obviously made some kind of special paint where it wouldn't chip off. Anyways, that there's like, and the other lesson, here's the main one is I didn't, like, don't give up. Because if I hadn't given up on that key idea, I would have eventually figured it out. And with this underwear thing, I had no idea what I was going to be doing, but the key would be that, just to never give up. And, here we are 12 years later, 13 years later, and I never gave up, which I had learned from that previous failure.
Right. And you had a little like bump in the road with Sheath, right? In terms of like the original Kickstarter or something like that, or there was a early failure, right? And that you had to recover from.
Couple of them, quite a few actually. So like I had the idea 2008. I ended up doing a production in 2010, and I had moved to Colorado, and I was tinkering with it for quite some time, and ultimately was able to get a production in 2010. But because I was so excited to get it to the people, I gave them the idea. And what happens when you order something, or when you're trying to make something in another country, you send them like a sample. So I had a sample made from a local seamstress here, and I sent it to Pakistan in this case. And what they sent me back wasn't what I sent them, but it was close enough in my mind. I was like, this is perfect. It was perfect to me, but it was not perfect. The pouch was too high, so when you put it on, it would like kind of like cut off circulation, not literally, but it would feel like it was cutting off circulation. It was pinching. It doesn't feel comfortable, and therefore when I would hand it to people, they didn't like it. And so that lesson, what I learned there was, don't rush when you're so excited to bring it to market.
Yeah.
You gotta, don't wait till it's perfect, because that's a whole other thing that people get involved with, where they never end up releasing it because they keep waiting for it to be perfect. But give it a few dry runs. Like, it's called, like, the sampling process it's back and forth quite a few times. So you want to just keep going back and forth until you're pretty, maybe you do like a fuck, where you get people to come. I'm doing Biden to this morning. Fuck. What's up, Biden? I was making fun of him earlier, and now I feel like an asshole. But it's like a group of people to test the product, so that you can see if, and then, so just get other people's opinions besides your own, so that you're not fooling yourself. Because I was just super excited. I was like, it's good enough, go to production. And then that set me back like 3 years. So if I would have just waited a couple more months and kept messing with, tinkering with it and get it right, we would have launched in 2010 instead of 2013, which, I mean, we did launch in 2010, but I had product I was sitting on. And we never like went out of business, even though I couldn't really sell them. I did sell like one a month or something. And for some people did like them, even the way they were. Those couple of people liked them. And then I ultimately went and worked at a tailor to fix them all. So I was like, I need to fix these, so I went to this tailor and I said, if you teach me how to fix these, I'll work your counter for free. And he thought I was up to something. He was a little suspicious, this Vietnamese dude. But ultimately we made a deal, and I worked there for about a year. And it was right around the end of that year, I had come up with a new design. I'd fixed them all, and I had been playing around with it enough to where I had a new prototype, and Kickstarter had come around that time. So I was like, well, let's try and see if the people think it's a good idea. And that's like a proof of concept. So if you pass on Kickstarter, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but it's a good indicator that you have a viable product. Because, I mean, I had one of my friends who, he also did a successful Kickstarter, but it was cell phone cases. And so he made enough to buy all these cell phone cases, but then even though it was successful, then you have to sell more cell phone cases. He had a closet full of cell phone cases,
Right.
So it's tricky.
That's insane. Yeah, I'm just imagining you in the learning how to become a tailor to kind of flip those products. And I guess, like, as you stand today, obviously you have like over a decade of the business running and moving successful. Like, what's the vision for like the future of Sheath? Like, are you going to expand outside of underwear? Like, is there stuff that you can talk about in terms of like, you partner with a lot of athletes, like obviously the underwear, like the mobility of it is like a key factor. Like in terms of the marketing, the branding, the product itself, like where do you see it all going in the next 10 years?
I'm in a weird place now where I'm like in a giving kind of mode where, and because I feel like the more you give, the more you get also. So it sort of circles back to you anyways. And by helping all these fighters young in their career, I feel like it's going to make a long lasting impact where they'll remember us forever and we'll be their brand forever. And people that kind of surround them will also, be attracted to our brand. And I have a bunch of fight gear that we've put together that we might start sending out to fighters. I don't know that we'll sell it, but we could kind of transition to a Venom sort of branding style, because we do work heavily with fighters, but it's all there's a lot of athletes and comedians. It's a lot of the people we work with. I was just talking with my daughter though about the homeless. I want to build some sort of compound for them so that they can not be wandering the streets like zombies, and they could actually like be somewhere where they're safe, and maybe have like a headquarters for if they need something, they could go to home base and get bandaged up or whatever. Because like there's all these problems in society and we leave it up to the government to fix it, but they're not fixing it. And private industry could do their part to help, and then you end up benefiting anyways, because people are like, look at that company, they're awesome because look what they're doing. And you feel good about it. Now you feel good because you're giving, you're helping people, you're making money. Like it's all works together. But some people don't see it like that. Like, I'm not giving them money because then I won't have that money.
Yeah.
What am I gonna, what do I do if I don't have the money? I have a friend, shout out to Ohana Kavabar. He loves his money and he's scared to like give it away. It's like the more you give, the more it comes back to you, is what I've been finding as along this journey. So
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting like lesson to, live by. And like you mentioned earlier, like just having those positive affirmations as well, and like having that kind of mindset every day. Something that, I know I try to pull from some of my favorite fighters. Obviously, I'm a big boxing fan, MMA as well. So there's a lot of lessons that, you can learn just from some of these guys' stories, and, all different type of athlete and personalities out there. Before we kind of wrap up here, I just wanted to kind of give you a platform to let everyone know maybe where they can follow you guys, maybe any updates or anything coming soon. But I really appreciate, having you on today, hearing a little bit about your story. It was very interesting to hear, from day one to 10 years plus later, where you're at now, story of perseverance and, overcoming failure, and now you're looking to give back. So it's all, awesome life lessons in there.
yeah, I mean, well, you might want to edit a little bit of this, but we did that successful Kickstarter. It was successful, but then you run into more obstacles. You're still going to run into more obstacles. And so, because when that first Kickstarter, even though it was successful, the product we ultimately ended up with was not sellable again. And so we had all these customers that wanted the product, but again, we had product. Now this time it wasn't my fault. It was the manufacturer's fault. But I like didn't give up again, and we did one more Kickstarter. But like I was just telling my daughter this, so, and I'll want to wrap up on a positive. Because I didn't give up, like immediately, even though I got the fucked up product, I was like, it took me a minute, but I was like, we're not quitting. We're gonna keep. And like, well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna do another Kickstarter? You can't do another Kickstarter. That's crazy, because you're gonna ask for more money from more people, even though you fucked up the product the first time again. I know. And so, but we did it again. or at least we made up the decision to do it again. And in the meantime, I was like trying to figure out, okay, we got to find another manufacturer. And as fate would have it, this company reached out to us. They're like, can we make your product for you? We'll do a good job. I said, okay, we'll give you a chance. I sent them my prototype that I had made for the first Kickstarter, but they improved it. So they sent it back and it was better than what I sent them, which was amazing. So that's like the universe kind of helping me. I felt like what I was saying to my daughter earlier was like, when the universe realizes you're not going to give up, it's going to be like, okay, we'll give you what you want. It's kind of magical and it's kind of woo woo, but since that point, it's just, like, doors open where there were only walls. Like, that's a phrase I hear. Like, it's just like the shit just opens up, and everything that these success books talk about starts becoming reality. But you have to break through this threshold of all the obstacles, like the test of the human spirit. Can you live up to that challenge? Are you willing to go beyond what most people are willing to do? And especially in the face of like where all the odds again are all against you, you have all these underwear companies that already exist. What makes you think you can just jump in here and stake your claim in the market? It's insurmountable, and people are going to tell you you can't do it. But like, even with this podcast, for instance, you have a podcast. Who do you think you are? You're going to have a good podcast, like have a popular podcast when there's so many out there already? How do you think how are you going to make your way through all the noise that exists? But if you just keep doing it, a lot of people are going to quit. Like, all these people that are doing them, they're going to, they'll do them for a couple of years, and then it's like, oh, it's not going well enough. It was fun, but I'm not going to do it. But you stick it out 10 years later, 90% of the people that were doing it are not doing it anymore. And now there's more new ones, but now you're up at the top. And
Right.
I mean, I want to leave with like some sort of positive note. And like, another thing that really resonated with me, of having this deep conversation earlier about, success and what it takes to be successful. And my daughter, very simply, she's like, it's so easy. All you got to do is, like, if you want to do something, you set a plan to do it. And then if you have a positive attitude along the way, like every time there's an obstacle, you're like, I can do this, okay, how am I going to figure this out? What do I got to do? And find somebody to help you. And you keep working towards that goal, you're going to figure it out. You're not going to be like, this is impossible to open up a coffee shop. Like, how could I possibly open up a coffee shop? Like, you'll figure it out and you'll make your way if you just don't give up and have a positive attitude. That just helps people work with you and get to where you want to go, because you're going to have to have people doing it along the, like, a lot of people helped me for years for free with the hope that one day it would be successful, and it is. And last thing, there's a show called Undercover Billionaire, and this dude's like a billionaire, and he does this challenge where he has 90 days to make a successful business that he could sell for like $250,000 with nothing, like no money, no nothing. And when she said that, it like reminded me of that show. And like, he did it again. He was already a billionaire, but he was just proving that you can do it with nothing, with just your mind. And like, he had a really positive attitude, and he was doing kind of what I did. He would go around and find people that were kind of doing what he needed to get to where he was going. And he would like, yo, I need help with this. If you help me with this, I'll give you a percentage of the company or whatever. And like, they believed him enough to help him because he seemed genuine and like a good guy. And ultimately, I think they fell like ever so short of the goal, but they built this amazing business in like 90 days. And it was all, and it's just a show, but like all because he set his mind out to do it. And like, if you really want it and you're willing to do what it takes and you have just a positive attitude, I think you can kind of do whatever you want to do, unless it's like fly or be in the NBA or something.
No, I love that. That's awesome. What a great way to wrap this up. I appreciate it, man. Everyone go check out Sheath Underwear on IG. Check it out. Order some new underwear. Follow us on YouTube at ThePodMatrix and me on IG, Brooklyn Boxing Podcast. Robert, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone.